St. Petersburg Junior Yacht Club was the place to be. So I joined the Junior Yacht Club in '48, sailing prams. Back there, they didn't have Optimus prams. The prams are called Haggerty Seashells. From there, after prams, we gravitated to fish class, and we kind of grew up in the Junior Yacht Club.
As I was an early teenager, I got involved with the sailing center. It was sort of a social center for all the kids in town when there was really no TV, there was no internet, there was no social stuff. So we found other things to do, and the sailing center was a great place for all of us.
When I was growing up, we used to be able to ride our bike. We grew up in the Pasadena area. And my mom would, no problem, we'd get on our bike and we'd ride down First Avenue South to the sailing center, and never had a problem. There was really no traffic. We'd spend all day at the sailing center on the fish boats or whatever boat they'd let us sail. Mr. Cantwell would let us sail, and right before dinner time, she'd call Mr. Cantwell and say, hey, tell the kids to come home. We'd get on our bikes and ride back to Pasadena. I don't think they can do that today.
From about age 10 to 14 or 15, sailed Opties and 420s and what have you at the sailing center and around Florida. That's what got me involved in the sailing part of the club, and socially my family would have events down here, as most members do. But it was really the sailing that connected me, and I've stayed with it and still love it.
I got involved in sailing at a later point in my life. Once I got involved in it, and I was in my mid to late 40s, it grew into a passion for me. And it also grew into a passion for my children. And I was a single parent, so it gave us an opportunity to have an activity that we could do as a family. And I'd heard about the Sailing Center summer camp. So I got my son enrolled in that. And during that summer, he really developed this love and skill for sailing. And there was a family that was involved at that time, and that was the Mendelblatts. And they took us under their wing and were extremely influential in our involvement in sailing at that time. My son went to the Worlds a couple times. After that, my son started to grow up and get involved in other things as well as I did. And in that interim period of time, I met my future wife, Isabel, and actually the Mendelblatts introduced us together. And we did a lot of boating as a family during that period of time.
Being involved with junior activities brought me more into the St. Petersburg Yacht Club. We developed quite a few young sailors who were very, very good, and we had our trials for the World's team, and of course that involved the entire United States. However, the St. Petersburg Yacht Club was very dominant and very strong in that, and we always supplied 1, 2, or 3 sailors to the 5-member team. I was also honored to take that team to 5 world championships, beginning in Canada, then Finland, followed by the Netherlands, and then Rosa, Spain in the 4th year, and the 5th year was La Rochelle, France. We did very well. Team racing at that time was considered the main event, and we were, for the United States, successful in winning the bronze medal in both Helsinki, Finland, and La Rochelle, France, in team racing.
The junior program at that time was quite different from what we have now. The old industrial maintenance building that the junior club was housed in was split into two parts. One housed the boats and some power tools that us kids could use for projects under occasional supervision, and the other half had an instructional area and a pool table and a ping pong table.
The sailing center was at that point a small wooden building that was leased to the yacht club for $1 a year by the railroad. They owned the whole South Mole. So we started sailing in the prams, and then as got into high school, the fish boats were a big part of our lives, where we actually had programs where we did Friday night sailing with dates in high school on nights then, and some trips across the bay for overnight stuff, which for young teenagers was really an exciting thing to be able to do. It was a life changer for all of us to do that, and the importance of that to me was that I could sit on the starboard rail at 3 o'clock in the morning and be having a conversation with people like Jack Eckert, Charlie Morgan, and all those guys. Where can a young child get that kind of an opportunity other than through what this club offered through sailing? So it was very important to us.
I got involved in sailing through my parents, and they enrolled me in the sailing center to sail prams, which was the initial program that was put together at the sailing center. Dr. Jennings was our coach, Commodore Jennings that is, and we learned quite a bit there. It was great to get involved. The number one thing that came out of that for me was that I found a sport that I could enjoy, I could do the rest of my life. And I still sail to this day, and I enjoy it. And met many people who are still my friends today. We had a tremendous support from our parents and all the adults. Back then when we got involved, the pram was a kit. You bought it from Clarkie Mills, and it was a father-son, father-daughter product, kind of like the soapbox derby used to be. And it really helped us. I learned a lot about woodworking, how to maintain the boat, then eventually how we race. Now, out of my class came a lot of wonderful sailors. I was never at their level, and I knew it, but I loved sailing. I enjoyed it. And it taught me a lot of life lessons, which I've carried through my whole life.
The 9 fish class boats that were tied up there at the time were regularly sailed by the adults, and we kids were anxious to become crew members on those and ultimately skippers and sail with and compete against the adults. You had to be 14 to skipper. We had a sailing director there, Captain Anderson, who was a retired Danish sea captain. And he was a tough little guy, and he really got us into the nomenclature of the boats. And we had to qualify at 14 to be able to skipper. One thing that comes through about junior sailing is the amazing performance of our juniors over the years. It is just hard to believe the number of championships, all-American sailors, internationally famous sailors. Ed Baird, Allison Jolly, John Jennings. I particularly mention John because John was never a professional, never worked in the game. He practiced chiropractic, but he was just a presence and a mentor for countless of these juniors, including Ed Baird and Allison Jolly. Ed, who of course was International Sailor of the Year, winning skipper in 2007 of the America's Cup, and the list is huge. Allison, I believe it was the 1988 Olympics, gold medalist in the 420 class, and a string of accomplishments, major national championships, women's national champion. And she still, I believe, runs the women's sailing program at the University of South Florida.
We always got our crew from the sailing center, okay, and that's how I got into bigger boats. was my parents would take me with them on the weekends. We didn't race our pram or our laser. Because I think one of the things that happens with the kids is they get bored with just one dimension, and especially with all the different things that are out in the world today. You want to get that mind active, and you want to get them out there in multiple ways of sailing, whether it's kiteboarding, whether it's laser sailing, whether it's sailing a big boat, PHRF, whatever it may be, or just cruising, sailing the boat down to Shell Island, drop the anchor, whatever it is. And that's why I think it stuck with me as a recreation, because my parents showed me a wide range of activities that you could do in boating. And you don't have to always race. There's a lot of fun things to do in boating.
My vision is sailing should be taught in our school system. Children should be taught to sail, and well, they'll have to learn to swim. And we'll save some lives even doing that. But sailing is a geometry problem. If you can learn to sail well, you have just probably brain mapped yourself as a young kid in a field of mathematics.
The independence that we had, I mean, I remember as a 14-year-old, 13, whatever I was, we sailed a Thanksgiving Day regatta in Tampa at Davis Island, and I think we'd been towed over there. For some reason, we couldn't get a tow back. So it's a Sunday night, we got school the next morning from Davis Island back to St. Pete at night, and yeah, this is the way we did things. Can you imagine that happening today?
For these junior sailors, we were not only interested in achievements in sailing and fantastic results, we were very interested in the development of these sailors off the water to become just fantastic citizens and in leadership roles. They were trained mainly by Commodore Jennings to be fantastic ladies and gentlemen, always attending the awards ceremonies and always shaking hands with the winners and those that came in higher with them, with the idea of beating them in the next regatta and then going on for that.
We all, are, one way or another, owe our careers and our success to our early sailing. We really do. And the people we met and the people we saw there. Where else can you get the motivation from people like that, you know?
The junior sailing program provided me a world of experience. By the time I was ready to go off to college, I had had the opportunity to do a good bit of sailing with adults. I think it was just a valuable life experience not to be in a kid bubble, but be in a situation where you're learning how adults interacted with each other, both when having fun and when the whole situation was going down the drain out on the race course. Came out of the junior yacht club, lasting friendships, lasting sailing friendships, and lifetime friendships. You know, it's kind of unique when you're out there getting your brains beat up in a sailboat race in the middle of the Gulf Stream. You become kind of close to people, you know.
The youth sailors are our future ambassadors.